Awesome. I would like to start this meeting. Welcome to the Agoura Hills Planning Commission meeting. Please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. If you wish to speak or submit a written public comment, please submit a comment card for each agenda item and submit it to the city clerk before the public comment portion of that item. I will call this meeting now into order. And I'm going to defer to Vice Chair Reinhardt to lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance. Great, thank you very much. And I will now defer to our city clerk for a roll call.
Thank you. Good evening. Commissioner Platzer?
Present.
Commissioner Sharon?
Present.
Commissioner Stein?
Present.
Vice Chair Reinhardt?
Present.
Chair Roth?
Here.
Chair Roth, you have a quorum.
Great, thank you. I will now move to the approval of tonight's agenda. Will the maker of the motion and the second to approve the agenda please state your names?
Commissioner Stein makes a motion to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Sharon seconds.
Great, thank you. I will now defer to our city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Platzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stein?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reinhardt?
Aye.
Chair Roth?
Aye.
Chair Roth, you have approval, 5-0.
Great, thank you. We are now going to move over to our public comment section of tonight's agenda. This is for items not on the agenda. So this section is reserved for persons wishing to speak on items not listed on tonight's agenda that are under the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. If you have something to distribute to the Planning Commission, please do not approach the dais. Hand your item to the city clerk to distribute on your behalf. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Persons addressing the Planning Commission shall not engage in disorderly conduct that disrupts or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of tonight's meeting. I will now defer to our city clerk. Do we have any public comments?
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence, nor do we have any speaker cards.
Great, thank you very much. So I will now start our public hearing. So our first one is an item regarding the continuance of a public hearing to our next Planning Commission date on August 21st, 2025. I will now defer to our Community Development Director, Denise Thomas, for an announcement.
Thank you, Chair Roth. Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Denise Thomas, Community Development Director here in the city. This particular item is being tabled and will come before you with a full staff report and presentation at your next upcoming meeting. There was additional information and details we were trying to work out before we could bring this item forward, and that's why it's being tabled. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Great. Do any commissioners have any questions? Fantastic. As the request tonight is to continue this public hearing to our next Planning Commission, we respectfully request that any public testimony who may be present here, but I don't think that's the case, is withheld until the August 21st, 2025 hearing date. And so again, the staff recommendation tonight is to continue the public hearing. And so unless if there's any other commissioner comments or staff comments, I will now call for a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation.
Commissioner Sharon makes a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Vice Chair Reinhardt seconds.
Great, thank you very much. I'll now defer to our city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Platzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stein?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reinhardt?
Aye.
Chair Roth?
Aye.
Chair Roth, you have approval, 5-0.
Thank you very much. Moving right along for tonight's actual public hearing that we'll be hearing. Our next item is to conduct a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit and site plan architectural review permit for a new 2-story single-family residence, detached garage, and pool house. 2, an oak tree permit to encroach into the protected zone of oak trees. 3, a variance to reduce the front yard setback. And 4, to adopt an addendum to the final EIR for the Palo Camado Ranch tract. I will now open the public hearing and defer to our Community Development Director, Denise Thomas, for the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Roth. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I am going to introduce this item to you. This item is request to construct a single-family home in the Palacamato tract in Old Agoura. As you may have noticed at your stations, your positions this evening, there was an errata memo. Yesterday, after the agenda had been published, it was brought to our attention that redundant information existed in Section 5B of the resolution. We have removed the repetitive information and provided you with a legislative copy which shows the strike-through and underline as it existed from the website. The recommendation of staff, the senior planner, Gene Burse, who's going to be giving you the presentation, he may have something to say about it when he gets to the recommendation section, but I just wanted you to know that we pulled out the redundant information, and we'll be available to answer any questions you have about that information. Other than that, I'd like to turn it over to our senior planner, Gene Burse, to provide you with a oral presentation of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Thomas, and good evening, Commissioners. So I'll go ahead and jump right into it. This project is located in the northeastern corner of the city of Agoura Hills. The graphic on the screen, you'll see a yellow star outlined in red. That's where the project site is located. You'll see US Highway 101 on the southern portion of this graphic, and then you also see Chesborough Road. So this kind of gives you a sense of where in the city this project is located. The site is triangular in shape. It's 1.45 acres. It's located at the northern end of Chesborough Road along its west side within the Palacamato Ranch residential tract. The lot is zoned open space restricted with overlays for drainage way, Old Agoura design, and equestrian. It also falls within a significant ecological area. Surrounding land uses include a mix of low-density residential as well as equestrian uses. To the west, the site is bordered by the Palacamato Creek, where the tree line is located. To the north, a private drive. To the south, a developed residential lot. And to the east, Chesborough Road, which is a private drive and not a public street. This particular lot is not considered a hillside since its average slope is 7.5%, which is less than the 10% required to be considered a hillside lot. So that's just some additional information for the Planning Commission to consider. This image on the screen is of existing conditions. The image includes story poles, which were required to be installed to demonstrate the height of the proposed residence and garage. This image also includes a sign, which was required to advertise today's public hearing. The proposed structures for this project include a new two-story residence and a detached garage/pool house, and are concentrated in the front half of the lot closer to Chesborough Road. This placement avoids expanding deeper into the lot, closer to the trees and close to the Palacamato Creek in the rear of the lot. This design minimizes grading, leaving much of the lot undisturbed. An area that is 2,700 square feet is set aside for equestrian uses and is located along the northern portion of the site, as indicated by the large dark rectangle, which is located here on the screen. And as you can see, these two dashed lines on the left side of the graphic represent the drainage way overlay. And then you can see that the site has a lot of oak trees on it, but the project is situated closer to the street to try to minimize environmental impacts. The project's architectural design is a traditional Santa Barbara style, which aligns with the eclectic rural character emphasized in the Old Agoura Design Overlay District. The design utilizes cream stucco walls, exposed wood rafter tails, and terracotta clay tiles to achieve a rustic appearance that is in character with the surrounding neighborhood. The two-story residence will stand at 29 feet, which is well below the 35-foot maximum height. The garage's architectural style follows the style of the proposed residence. The garage will be one story and will stand at 17 feet in height and helps to minimize the visual impact of the overall project. The next few images I'm going to go through are renderings of the proposed project. On this rendering on the screen, you will see Chesborough Road on the left side of the graphic, and you'll also see the private drive that it intersects with. On the right side of the graphic, you see the equestrian area, and then you also see the one-story garage and the two-story residence. This view of the rendering of the project site faces to the west of Chesborough Road, so you're looking at the front of the proposed house. This is another view looking toward the front of the house and more so of the front of the garage, which is located on the right side of the graphic. The project has been designed to conform to the vast majority of the city's zoning requirements. The proposed building site coverage is 8.61% of the lot, which is below the 10% maximum. Both the residence and garage are designed to be below the maximum 35-foot height limit. The project also provides 2,700 square feet in area for horsekeeping, which exceeds the minimum 1,500 square feet of area required for the equestrian overlay district. Architecturally, the design incorporates a traditional Santa Barbara style with natural materials, earth tones, which is consistent with the old Agoura design overlay district. The project does not comply with the required 50-foot street setback, but the applicant has requested a variance to reduce the setback to 23 feet and 6 inches. The project meets the side and rear setback requirements. And the zoning conformance table that's before you just outlines a variety of criteria in which the project complies with per the zoning code. The project includes a request for a variance to reduce the front yard setback from the required 50 feet to 23 feet, 6 inches. This represents a 53% reduction from the minimum requirement per the zoning ordinance. The variance is necessary due to site constraints that restrict the developable area of the lot. The rear and side boundaries of the property are lined with oak trees along the Palo Camado Creek, which those oak trees have expanded into the development zone over the years. Additionally, the requirement for an on-site private septic system further reduces the viable building pad area. Such limitations collectively force the placement of the structures closer to Chesborough Road. This approach allows the development to avoid expanding into the sensitive natural areas in the rear of the lot, thereby minimizing potential environmental impacts. Oak tree compliance. An oak tree permit has been requested for encroachment into the protected zones of 16 oak trees on the site. No trees will be removed, and the overall encroachment for the entire site is 1.7% of the total protected zone. The encroachment on any single oak tree will not exceed 20%. This oak tree permit is necessary because site constraints, such as the oak trees closer toward the rear portion of the site, force structures closer to the street, making some encroachment unavoidable. The project is conditioned to comply with the city's oak tree preservation guidelines to ensure the continued health of oak trees on the site. Environmental review. The environmental review for this project is based on the original final environmental impact report, which was certified in 2000 for the Palo Camado Ranch tract. An addendum to the final environmental impact report was prepared in May of this year in accordance with CEQA guidelines. This addendum analyzed the proposed project and concluded that it would not result in new significant environmental impacts or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant effects. The addendum found that a larger building pad proposed by the project does not constitute a substantial change, but it remains within the developable area identified in the original final impact report, or final environmental impact report. The project therefore does not require a subsequent EIR. Mitigation measures from the original final environmental impact report have been incorporated into the project design and included as conditions of approval. This confirms the project's adherence to prior environmental findings and mitigation measures. I would like to remind the Planning Commission about the errata memo Director Thomas mentioned earlier pertaining to the removal of redundant language that staff was notified of in the draft conditional use permit resolution notified as of yesterday. Based on the foregoing analysis, staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the following actions. Approve conditional use permit CUP 2024-0030, site plan architectural review permit, case number SPR 2024-0049, the Oak Tree permit, OAK 2024-0106, and variance case number VAR 2024-0004, subject to conditions, and adopt an addendum to the final environmental impact report for the Palo Camado Ranch tract based on findings of the attached draft resolutions as amended. This recommendation is based on the findings presented in the attached draft resolutions, which confirm the project's compliance with applicable codes, its compatibility with the surrounding area, and its alignment with the city's general plan and environmental goals. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is open to questions at this time.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner Stein, if I may start with you, do you have any questions of staff?
First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. In reading all the pages of it, there was only one thing I was not 100% clear on, is there's a private septic system, and it had LA County Health conceptually approved it. I'm not sure what conceptually means.
LA County has provided approval for the septic system, but the applicant will have to go back for final approval to make sure that everything is okay. But at least conceptually, in order to get through the entitlement process, that's what that was representative of.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Platzer, do you have any questions of staff?
Yes, this project was up for approval years ago, right?
This project, so 3 years ago in 2022, the applicant did submit a very, very similar project, practically identical. It was for a two-story house, a two-story garage. The entitlements expired, and so the applicant has come back with this project. The primary difference is the footprint of the garage expanded by approximately 100 square feet, and then the garage went from 2 stories to being 1 story.
Okay. Was the setback 23 feet and 6 inches at that time?
Yes, it was, and it was approved with that setback. It was approved for a variance for that setback.
Okay. One more question. Also, it said that the variance is subject to condition. What does that mean?
Well, there are a list of conditions in the draft resolution for the variance, and we just want to make sure that the applicant complies, and we have to meet they have to meet findings of the zoning code, and so there are conditions where they can't, encroach further than 23 feet and 6 inches, and there are some other items in the draft resolution to make sure that they comply with the approval, if approved.
And where are the utilities? There was a concern that the utilities were running underneath the property in question.
So there are a couple of gas lines located in the northern portion of the site. No structure is proposed to encroach or be over those gas lines. And then there are also utilities. The private septic system is located in the northern portion of the site, and then also gas lines are located away from the house to where they won't be infringed upon. But then also for those gas lines, the applicant will be required to dig 2 feet on either side of identified gas lines on some maps and to verify in the field where those are located. But there are no utilities that will be impacted in a negative way as a result of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Commissioner Sharon, do you have any questions for staff?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I did not visit the site, but do you guys know where the nearest fire hydrant is? The utilities built out over there for, or are the applicants responsible for putting a fire hydrant in the within the vicinity?
I am not entirely sure where the nearest fire hydrant is located, but I believe the applicant may be able to speak to that during his time to present.
Okay. I do remember when we approved a different project, there was one over the, back in the back street that goes behind the lot, but I don't recall if there's any closer ones. So I just, would that be something that the fire department has to sign off on before anything?
What I will say is that LA County Fire did sign off on this project in order for it to be at this hearing at this time.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. And then the impact, so the oak tree, it's below the encroachment percentage, but was there any arborist or any consult on, is there any impact on the oak trees for the amount that they are pruning, I guess the word would be called?
So for the oak tree report, there was one submitted, and then also the oak tree permit has conditions of approval. The oak tree report basically just said that 16 trees will be impacted. They're still going to be in good health. There are a list of conditions that the applicant has to comply with. Upon building permit, the city's oak tree consultant have to go out and inspect and make sure that during the construction phase, all those conditions are being complied with.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Reinhardt, do you have any questions of staff?
Thank you. And thank you, staff, for the comprehensive report and presentation. So going back to the setback from the lot, when the previous project was approved, was the height line the same on the original structure?
Are you asking, was the setback the same?
No, not the setback, but not only, should we consider the setback, but also the total height of the project? I mean, one of the renderings, I know it's smaller than the maximum height that's allowed in development, but the way that it looked on the site, it looked a little tall. So I just wanted to know if the similarly approved project had a similar height line.
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to minimizing the setback, are there any mitigations regarding landscaping in the front? I mean, I know that we're very concerned about the oak trees and making sure that they stay happy and healthy in the backyard, and that the creek zone is maintained as best as possible, to our environmental standards. But are there any, one of the reasons I know that we have setbacks in all of our neighborhoods, right, is if you go to some of the neighborhoods that were developed with lesser setbacks in the city, it changes the look of the neighborhood, right? And I know that a lot of concessions have been made here in order to make sure that this project conforms to the rest of Old Agoura. So we might be getting a little nitty gritty here, but it's important to make sure that everything does fit, and that there are, that it fits in with the rest of the character of the neighborhood. And I was just a little concerned about that.
Sure, no problem. So on the screen, the applicant is proposing to have trees along Chesborough to help soften the impact, particularly some trees in front of the proposed project to help soften the impact of the bulk of the building, if you would. So in addition to not only protecting some of the oak trees on site by minimizing impact by having the buildings closer to Chesborough, but also proposing some landscaping in the front along Chesborough to help soften the impact of the size and bulk of the proposed project.
And the area to the right of the garage and pool house structure, between that and the equestrian zone, upper, I think it almost looks like an extension of the garage area on the rendering. Is that hardscape?
Yeah, yes. So there's quite a bit of hardscape on the site, but it's all still well below what's required within the zoning district.
And that also conforms to the fire brush clearing and fire mitigation.
Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I have a few questions myself. Going back to the original approval of the project back in 2022, and forgive me, I've been having technical difficulties, so I didn't get all the way through the entire staff report. But was there a weigh-in from the Architectural Review Design Board then? Was there input from the Old Agoura Neighbors Association? And were there any public comments received then about the project? Not seeing any today. I just want to make sure we have a full grasp of what the public was feeling about the project back then.
Thank you so much for that, Commissioner. So typically in the city of Agoura Hills, the ARP does have to weigh in on projects. To your point about the Old Agoura, was there any comments from the Old Agoura homeowners group? There was back then. For this particular project today, they did receive public notice, but they had not submitted any comments. However, for the previously approved project, they did submit a letter in support of the project. It was dated August 2nd, 2020. If the commission wants, I have some copies available. They did submit comments in favor of the project at that time for the previous entitlement.
Great, thank you very much. With respect to the landscaping in the front, I've had conversations generally in the past about kind of usage of certain types of trees throughout the city. So I'm just wondering if there's any consideration of more native trees that might be more fire resistant in the event of a wildfire there. And I'm not sure if there's anything we can do from a CUP perspective in requiring that. I would defer maybe to Travis or Denise, but I'm curious about what consideration there would be for more fire-resistant tree usage in that area.
I'll defer to Director Thomas.
Thank you.
So before this project can be approved, when they go through building permit review, they're going to go through final fuel mod review at the fire department. At this stage, what the fire department and the health department generally do is they look at preliminary plans, and then once the applicant submits for the final review, they really dig into it. At this stage, we could try and condition for native trees, but at the end of the day, when it comes to fuel mod, it's the fire department that's going to make the call. So if we recommend very specific trees that the fuel mod reviewer at the fire department doesn't accept, they would either have to go back through another process or maybe come in. So our recommendation would be to accept the preliminary plan as part of your deliberation, and then you can make whatever recommendations you choose to make, but to allow the fire scientists to do their review on which trees are appropriate in the wildfire urban interface, or WUI, because that's still up in the air on what they will and won't accept. Does that help?
That's an acronym. What was it, WUI?
Yeah, it's wildland urban interface is what I believe it is, and they call it the WUI. And so it's the area where we meet the wildlands, the undeveloped area where habitat is, that's generally not kept the same way that an urban environment would be.
Well, maybe this is a separate conversation I can have with staff, but I'm just curious, generally speaking, what kind of developments there are around, recommendations on what plant use. We can table this, but, for the purposes of tonight, would be eager to hear the applicant talk about that as well. I guess my only other question would have to do with the creek. We approved a prior project, I believe it was directly across the street. I also didn't have an opportunity to come visit the site. We did put a condition on ensuring, protecting the creek essentially, based off of the topography of what I believe I'm looking at compared to that project. This seems like the way the watershed goes into the creek is different from the prior project. So Gene, do you mind just kind of elaborating on that? I don't want to put any undue burdensome condition on this without fully understanding, and hopefully we don't have to do that tonight.
Yeah, that's no problem. I can't speak to the project in which you're referencing. And to be full transparency, I'm not sure exactly which project you're referring to, but I do know that for this particular project, the applicant has taken pains to try to keep the buildings closer to the street because he knew that was a concern based upon the previous approval to protect the creek and also to protect the oak trees. And so the distance for this, for the proposed structure, staff believes is appropriate, but it also conflicts with the setback. So that's why, it's kind of a catch-22. Protect the creek. The slope of the site, like I said, 7%, so 7.5%. So you don't have to deal, not too concerned about runoff and things of that nature, having an adverse impact on the creek.
Great. And then as the last follow-up, is there any consideration in the CUP for our rodenticides and insecticides, et cetera, and are there overarching city ordinances that would protect usage of those throughout the project site?
I'll defer to Director Thomas.
I believe that you're referring to the poison-free Agoura policy where we discourage rodenticides or the use of the anticoagulants to control pests. Generally speaking, we add that in as a condition, but if it's not present in the conditions of approval, then you can add that as part of your deliberation, and we can go ahead and include it.
Great, thank you very much. Do my fellow commissioners have any other questions of staff before we move over to ex parte communications? Commissioner Platzer, thank you.
Does lighting play a role in this initial project?
Yes, so lighting is required to be shielded downward, and also there was a lighting plan as part of the project drawings. And so lighting does meet the zoning requirements in this particular portion of the Old Agoura, in this particular portion of the city. So there are conditions pertaining to lighting that the applicant must comply with to make sure that the lighting doesn't have a negative or adverse impact on the environment.
Great. Any further questions from my fellow commissioners? Seeing none. Great. We will now move over to ex parte communications. Would any commissioner like to announce any communications to disclose? Commissioner Sharon? Sorry, Potzer, I apologize.
I visited the site twice because I was concerned about the setback. And I kept on going back and back, so I was there.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioner?
Commissioner Stein visited the site and spoke with staff.
Great, thank you. I think probably pretty universally we all had maybe a chat with staff because of maybe technical difficulties this time around. Great, seeing no other ex parte communications, I'm now going to defer to the applicant who I see here present. You and your representatives will have a total of 15 minutes for your presentation. You may come up to the podium there and please adjust the microphone and watch for the red light on the podium. When you see the yellow light, you will have 1 minute to wrap up your comments. Yeah, I'll defer to you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Can I go? I don't see any lights. My name is, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Thank you for having me. Appreciate everyone's time. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Gelt, and this is my wife, Julia Gelt. We're a member of the Agoura Hills community. We've been here for years now. Our kids go to school here. We volunteer. We love this area, and we're really excited to see our house get built, hopefully. Appreciate the time. Before I get into the presentation, I just want to touch on some of the comments that came up earlier. Commissioner Sharon, Ms. Sharon, there is a fire hydrant right out front. It's already there. As far as while we're on fire, we've been through fuel mod approvals with the fire department. We've been through the architecture and the plans themselves have been scrutinized by the fire department. We've complied with the number of plants and the amount and the species of plant in the different zones. So within the first 25 feet, you can have certain plants, and the next 10 feet, you can have certain plants. The trees, we actually, not only we're not touching any tree, we're not even pruning a tree, we are encroaching within the setback of the tree, but that setback of the tree extends 5 feet beyond the drip line, and staff can all touch on this if I'm inaccurate in any way, but so we are encroaching within that 5 feet, so we're getting close to trees, but only about 2% of the overall tree. We love the trees, you know, we fell in love with the property because of the trees. You know, there's some very special trees on the site that we've been trying to respect and design around. In addition, we're planting more oak trees, and the other two species of tree, well, we're planting some, we like to plant some like citrus tree, like there's one citrus tree, and then there's 2 olive trees, and then there's mesquite trees, which were all approved by the fire department and fuel mod, and they're drought resistant, they're native-y, you know, the oak trees are native, but the other ones we think would blend into the context of the community and the surrounding character. And there was another point I was going to make. We could talk about setback a little bit. Yeah. And the utilities. Yeah, the pipelines. Yeah, we'll get into that. We have a slide for that. I just want to touch on that. But so yeah, let's maybe go to the next slide. The design team wasn't able to make it tonight, so hopefully I can answer most questions myself. All right, so basically this is the overall slide, kind of the agenda tonight. Vicinity, I think everybody knows where the project's located. We talked about the entitlement request. All right, if we can hold on this slide for 1 second. So we originally submitted in 2019, as Gene said, and we were approved in 2022. So it took 3 years to get, it was a lot of work, you know, and we understand the amount of thought that needs to go into high quality Agoura Hills supported projects. So we understand the time, but still, it took 3 years. And then the entitlements didn't exactly just expire. What happened was we wanted to remove the second story above the garage, and that precipitated another entitlement. We said, hey, why can't we just remove the second story of the garage and go get a permit? Well, the city wanted us to kind of go through a whole nother process because we removed that second story, even though it's, you know, it's less height, it's less mass, it it brings our project, impact down, but there was still an entitlement process that we had, an additional entitlement process that we had to go through. So we resubmitted, it took some time, and then the entitlements expired. So, and then it's like, oh no, that we had to kind of go through this whole thing again. Anyhow, so we expired on April 7th. We're here now, and we're hoping we can get your support tonight. So I want to talk a little about the challenges of the site and why it requires that variance in the front yard setback. So it's a triangular shape. It's in and of itself, it's kind of different to design around. And then if you go to the next slide, the flood zone and the Palomino Creek is in the back, which is a beautiful creek. We want to, keep it clean and keep it nice, and our kids like to go down there and play in there. So then all the oak trees, you can see the amount of oak trees that are on the site that we had to design around. That was one of the things, we didn't want to touch them. We wanted to leave them where they were. Those are the pipelines that are running through it. We can't go over a pipeline with the structure, and we have to be, I think, 2-3 feet away from the pipe. So you could see our garage is 3 feet away in the front, and then we had to, that was a challenge. And then the next slide, you'll see there's a required equestrian area that we designated for that corner over the pipes. And then we have a septic. The purple on the top right are leach fields for the septic, which you can't build over. So what was left is in the yellow, and it was such a challenging shape to build a reasonable structure. So, and we also looked at the surrounding context. If you drive up and down the street, the neighbor, on the next slide, you'll see, one more slide, the 23-foot, that's the neighbor. Their setback's only 21 feet. So we thought it would be a reasonable request to say, we're actually going to be beyond their setback a little bit more. And even the property further north, it's not on this slide, their setback looks like it got reduced. And I can't quote that, but if you drive up and down, you'll see that. So our variance findings, we have site constraints that create a hardship, which do not allow for the reasonable development of the property. Our neighbor directly to the south has a setback of only 21 feet compared to our 23.5, and we're not getting any special privileges here, just reasonable use. And the strict interpretation of the code results in a hardship to us. So here's showing a slide showing the oak tree encroachments in the red. You could see where we're getting close to trees. And again, we don't have to cut them, we don't have to touch them. We're just in that 5-foot zone outside of the drip line. There's 40 oak trees on site. There's 50 trees that are either on site or crossing the property line. We're only proposing a 1.6% encroachment. And we've redesigned the site so no encroachment upon a single oak tree of more than 20%. So in our original hearing, not only was the old Agoura HOA supportive, but they attended the hearing, they vocalized their support, they wrote a letter of support. We went through design reviews with the city and the city staff, and everyone was supportive there. Our adjacent neighbors hopefully are supportive. We have one here tonight. But they've been very supportive, actually. Everybody's been really nice in that area. You've seen the floor plans. You've seen this. That's the architecture on the front. And then here's a before and after slide. So on the left is the project that was approved a couple of years ago. And you'll see the second story above the garage. So all we're asking is to reduce that second story. And then the next slide is a rendering. On the left, you'll see the second story above the garage. On the right, it's been eliminated. And really, we thought that it was a little bit oversized. We didn't really need the space. We're thinking ADU or, in-law, place. We're like, maybe we don't want the in-laws to be too comfortable in the house. So that's really why, and, shave some costs too. So, that's really it. Thank you for your time, and we're here for questions if anybody has any.
Great. Before we move on to public comments, do any commissioners have any questions of tonight's applicant? You can remain up there until we're through this section. I'm seeing Commissioner Sharon.
Thank you for the presentation, and You know, I love that you corrected me because pruning and encroaching are very different things, and I really appreciate you clarifying it. I actually find it very impressive that you're building such a beautiful house on a lot with 50 trees and not touching a single one. So I don't really actually have any additional questions. I just wanted to, emphasize the correction.
Thank you very much.
Do any other commissioners have a question for tonight's applicant? Great. I would echo, just appreciate the presentation, the thoughtfulness to respond to our questions to staff, the clarification. And yeah, you may be seated now. So I will now defer to our city clerk for any public comments on tonight's hearing. If you have something to distribute to the Planning Commission, please hand it to our city clerk. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Defer to our
Thank
city
you.
clerk.
We did not receive any written correspondence, nor do we have any speaker cards.
Great. Seeing that there have been no speakers, you technically have 5 minutes to rebut, should you choose. I will defer to you. It's your time to utilize for 5 minutes. You think okay? Great. Now, before I close tonight's public hearing, do any commissioners have any further questions of the applicant or of staff? Commissioner Platzer.
Yes, the applicant said that the other homes were 21 feet setback, and the other one, I went up and down the street, and I live in Agoura. I just don't want this to be a precedence. So I'm wondering if those homes, how old they are, or were they grandfathered in? Because my home is not in compliance, it would have to be knocked down, and setbacks would have to be changed.
So staff did not, when it comes to looking at variance requests, we have to look at each individual one, and findings have to be made for each individual one. To answer your question succinctly, staff did not evaluate to see what the variance requests that other homes may or may not have received. So we have to look at each variance request as they come in, provide findings based upon the merits of their specific request.
I have a
Commissioner
follow-up.
Ryan?
Sorry, I have a follow-up question. So I can understand Commissioner Platzer's, concern about that, but to the point that we don't, that staff doesn't go and compare other neighboring properties, and I can understand being concerned about precedent. Would you then state that any project is unique because of every single plot of land in the Old Agoura zone is unique, and whatever project they come up with, if there is there isn't necessarily a need for a variance on every single piece of property, right? Because these are triangular shaped properties, but some of the other ones that are down the street are flag shaped or rectangular.
I'll defer to city attorney.
Yeah, I can take this one. So a variance is sort of individualized to the parcel, and there needs to be a showing of substantial burden to developing on that parcel. So in this case, I think they're arguing that because of the shape of the parcel, of this particular individual parcel, that they wouldn't be able to develop. So it's kind of a separate question from whether or not your neighbor can do it, and it's not sort of based on precedent.
Okay, so to her point, we're not setting any kind of a example by making any sort of a variance.
That's correct. So any variance application for a neighboring property would have to come before you and sort of meet the same burden of proof, showing that there's sort of unreasonable burdens because of the quality of the property.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Are there any further questions? I just have one more follow-up on the poison-free ordinance. I just want to confirm we can either move forward with an additional addendum on the conditional use tonight with that, or will that be something that will be attached on through the permitting process at a later date through staff's purview?
We have Denise Thomas, Community Development Director. The city-wide has a policy that the anticoagulants, the pesticides, and the rodenticides are not permissible. There is no standard condition in your conditions of approval in front of you that does that, but that is that's a requirement citywide. If you want to add a condition of approval that says that you will adhere to a poison-free Agoura policy, you can add that. It's completely okay. But we would look for that just in general because that's a citywide policy our council supports.
Great, thank you very much. No further questions? Commissioner Platzer, one more.
To the applicant, I appreciate you have a 2,700 square foot site for the horses, but that's not going to shrink in time, right? That's designated to be horse property, right?
Yeah, we intend, yeah. My wife, yeah, we intend to maintain that corner for horse use, definitely, equestrian use. My wife is from Colorado, and we fell in love with that old Agoura because of the horses and because of the opportunity to have a couple horses, and the trails are right there. I would say too, I don't want to belabor the setback comment, but want to have the opportunity. I think that the end of Chesborough Road's a little different than some of the other parts of Chesborough Road, and there's other precedent where other people got less of a setback. So I don't know that anybody, and if the site is very deep, or there's everybody needs to make findings in order to justify why you should be granted a setback reduction. But I think this is definitely warranted, and I appreciate your guys' attention on that. So. But yeah, we definitely want to have horses.
Okay, I appreciate
Long
that.
story short.
Because I've lived in the old Agoura before the city became a city, so it's important to keep it equestrian.
Yeah,
So I appreciate it.
yeah.
Great, no further questions? Fantastic. I will now close the public hearing, and we can now move on to Commissioner deliberations. I will go to my right to Commissioner Sharon to begin. Thank you.
So I, too, am an Old Agoura resident. I don't live on Chesborough, but I do walk and, ride my bike with my kids down that street quite frequently. And I understand the need for the variance. I think that the intention of preserving our natural habitat is, I can tell that it's important to you guys. I think you guys are sacrificing a lot of your privacy, your personal privacy, by being so close to the main road, and in return, doing your best to protect, the creek, the wildlife, the trees, and I really appreciate that. I think that that's something that I think that in like the community, we want to protect those spaces. Once they're gone, they're never coming back. And so the fact that you guys are building such a beautiful house and not touching any of the trees, I'm impressed. And so, I don't, so I understand the need for the variance. I also understand, there's gas lines that you cannot touch and cannot build on top. And so it seems like it's a very specific request, and, I can make all the findings. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Commissioner Sharon. Commissioner Stein.
Yeah, so obviously we have to prove the CUP, the site plan architectural, it's all going to be done at once, the oak tree, the variance, and also the addendum to the EIR. So we're making our deliberations and findings on all of those. I just want to be clear. So to me, the biggest concern obviously was the variance. But I do find there is extreme hardship placed on you because when the project was originally developed 20 years ago and approved, we made the lots narrower, so you were constrained. I do like the fact that how you approach the project, how you look at the project, and how you're going to impact the trees, the creek. So my humble opinion, I can make all the findings and approve the project.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Platzer.
My only concern was the setback, and I could see what the history is. The history was you already had approval, and then it fell. And now we're up for another approval because you changed the height of the garage. So, and I understand that you want, and I appreciate you want to keep all the oak trees. And I did visit the property, and I know the gas lines, and I also appreciate the question area. So my biggest concern was the setback, and I didn't want a precedence. But you've met all the conditions, so I would have to approve it.
So with that, you can make all the findings of the staff report?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Reinhardt?
Thank you, Chair Roth. And, looking at this project, again, echoing the sentiments of my fellow commissioners, you have put an incredible amount of detail and care into developing this, parcel of land with heart and with the spirit of what Agoura Hills is meant to be, and I really appreciate that. And, we don't ask these questions to hinder, right? We ask them to make sure that projects like this are, approved without any reservation. And looking at what you've done to protect the creek side and to, make sure that the trees and the natural environment exist, I too can make all the findings. And also, yay for a Spanish architecture, Santa Barbara style. No offense, modern farmhouses, but I like that. So it looks like a really beautiful project.
A crushing blow to the modern farmhouse. Yeah.
I said no harm.
So I'll conclude with my deliberations, Chair Roth here. I equally can make all the findings, particularly on the variance. I was again technologically limited, but quickly could see, based off of the constraints of the gas lines, maintaining the abundant amount of oak trees that are on the property within the constraints that you had, possibly would not be able to build the project without the variance. So definitely recognize that as being a hardship. I make very similar echoed comments to all my commissioners. You all seem very in love with our community. You have children, which I'm a dad, so hearing kids playing in the creek is awesome, which also leads me to believe that you're probably not going to be using a lot of things like heavy rodenticides and things like that we as a city typically disapprove of. So yeah, I similarly can make all the findings tonight, and wish you well. And you guys have been on a long journey, so it seems like maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel for you all. So with that, I will now call for a motion and a second to approve tonight's staff recommendation. And before we do so, are there any other actions to be made? I made the comments about the poison-free. I'm willing to entrust our city staff who respects our public opinion about the use of those products in our city, and leave that off tonight. But I'm curious if there's any other concerns from fellow commissioners. Great. Denise, I saw you were about to.
I was going to say it's up to you. If you
Yeah.
want to put the condition in there, you can put it in there. And if you don't, there is a lot of information in the Poison-Free Agoura. Special interest group is very, very zealous in their oversight. So if you want it as a condition, we'll put it as a condition. It just might be a little difficult to enforce if they do it in the evening and we don't know they're doing it, or the weekend. Sometimes it could be hard, but it's completely up to you. If you want it as a condition, you can just put it in there.
I mean, like I said, I think based off of the comments that made throughout, I trust that these are fine residents of our community and really truly believe the impact and the purpose of not doing so and utilizing those products. And so I'm willing to move forward without the addendum or the additional requirement. And I'm seeing nods from my fellow commissioners. So with that, is there a maker of tonight's motion? I will read this, so it's easy. You can just say so moved, and then someone can second. But tonight, the staff recommendation is to, 1, approve the conditional use permit case number CUP 2024-0030 and site plan architectural review permit case number SPR 2024-0049. Second, to approve the oak tree case permit OAK 2024-0106, 3, a variance case number variance 2024-0004, subject to conditions. And 4, and finally, to adopt an addendum to the final EIR for the Palo Camado Ranch tract based on the findings of the resolutions. And I will add another one, which is to also approve the revised addendum in the staff redundancy that was identified in the errata memorandum delivered to us tonight. Do I have a maker of tonight's motion?
Vice Chair Reinhardt makes the motion.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Commissioner Stein seconds.
Great. Thank you very much. I will now defer to our city clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Platzer?
Aye.
Sorry. Commissioner Sharon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stein?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reinhardt?
Aye.
Chair Roth?
Aye.
Chair Roth, you have approval, 5-0.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. I will now defer, well, before I congratulate you, I should defer to our city clerk for a final word. Or sorry, our community development director.
Thank you. Denise Thomas, Community Development Director. The decision of the Planning Commission is final unless an appeal is filed with the City Council in 15 days. Thank you.
Now I'll congratulate you. Great, moving on. Are there any comments from our staff tonight? Great. Are there any comments or questions of the Planning Commission outside of tonight's agenda? I have one. Obviously, massive change in housing policy in the state of California with all the changes to CEQA. So I know, it's probably out of the scope of tonight's meeting, but curious if there's going to be any information provided to council or us as a commission about those changes that have been made to CEQA with regard to housing.
Denise Thomas speaking. To my knowledge, I don't have plans to do a briefing on the new CEQA changes. However, if you agree as a board that you would like to have a training session, we can see what we can provide for you moving forward. And I don't believe that the city council has requested a briefing, but if they do, I can notify all of you that it's going to happen so that you can be available. But if you want us to do an overview of the changes, we can bring an informational item to you. If you want to agendize that, just let us know.
Fantastic. What I'll do is I'll make it a plug to attend next year's Planning Commissioner Summit, because I'm sure it's going to be a hot button topic there. Fantastic. All right, seeing no other comments.
Are the dates for that Planning Commissioner training available yet?
No, they haven't released the dates. This year's training happened, I want to say in February, so I would imagine February is when they will January they'll release it.
Actually, it was the first week of March, and I know that because I was unavailable for the second year in a row. So if staff finds out when that conference is, the sooner the better, because my calendar is very complicated. And I would love to attend.
Yes, we will do that.
Fantastic. Seeing no other comments, great to be with you all again. I hope you all had an enjoyable summer. The next regular Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for 6 p.m. now on Thursday, August 21st, 2025 in the council chambers of the Civic Center located at 30,001 Ladyface Court. I'm going to get that one day. Agoura Hills, California. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.